Hi, today I'm going to show you how to do two-colour brioche knitting in the round. It usually involves your sort of main colour and a contrast colour. The main colour is usually what you have your setup round in, and your contrast colour is generally going to be your burped round or your purled round in brioche knitting, and the main colour will be your knit round or your brioche knit, or your bark as they call it in brioche knitting. So we have our stitches cast on. I'm going to place my marker for it to mark the end of the round, and then our setup round, regardless whether it is in the flat or in the round, is generally done in your main colour yarn or your knit, your brioche knit yarn, and it is the same worked stitches in that you're going to knit the first stitch and then you're going to slip one yarn over the next stitch, knit the following stitch, slip one yarn over all the way around until you get to the end. So we knit the first stitch, and then with brioche knitting, you bring the yarn to the front for your slip one yarn over, you slip one purlwise, your yarn over is then created when you knit the next stitch. Again, bring the yarn to the front, slip one, yarn over and knit. And again, bring yarn to the front, slip one and knit. Yarn to the front, slip one, yarn over and you knit. Now if you continue that all the way around until you get to the last few stitches, then I'll rejoin you back and you can see how we go to join in our contrast gold colour. Hi, so you've worked all the way around your yarn with your slip one yarn over and knit, and I'm just going to finish the last couple of stitches here at the end of the round. So again, yarn in front, slip one, yarn over and knit. The last one of the setup round is always going to be a slip one yarn over. So we're going to slip it purlwise, and then we have our yarn over, which would be normally you would bring it over. But because we're at the end of a row and we're going to introduce a contrast colour, our gold colour, I prefer to leave the yarn of the main colour hanging to the front of the work. Don't try and bring it over, and then I'll show you how you deal with that at the end of our brioche purl round. So first of all, we're going to slip our end of row marker, then we're going to take and join in our contrast colour or light side, whichever the pattern is calling for as the second colour. And then what we're going to do, because this is a brioche purl round, we're going to slip the first stitch again purlwise. Our yarn is in front because we've just left it to the front. And then we're going to wrap it all the way around for our yarn over, and then we're going to burp or brioche purl the next stitch, which is the previous slip stitch with its yarn over. So the two strands there, or two loops, are purled together. Our next one, again, we're going to slip it purlwise, bring the yarn all the way around our right hand needle, and then burp the two loops again for a brioche burp. So slip, over, and brioche purl or burp. Slip, purlwise, over, and burp, which I think is quite a funny little threesome. So you go slip, purlwise, yarn over, and you're going to burp. Oh, that one's got a bit wangles there. So here we go, slip, over, and burp. And we slip, over, and burp. And we slip it again purlwise, bring the yarn around the right hand needle, and we burp the next brioche burp or brioche purl stitch. Again, slip purlwise, yarn around, and burp. So you can keep going, slip, over, and burp. And if you keep doing that all the way to the end, I actually love the brioche purling because it tends to flow really nicely. Your yarn is already in the front, so you don't have to bring it forward and think about it like the knit, and you just keep going. So if you keep going all the way around until we get to the end again, then I'll show you how you deal with our yarns that were floating to the front of our work, not the back of our work. Okay? So so we've been burping or brioche purling all the way around with our contrast color yarn. So we're almost at the end of the round here, and I'm just going to continue up until we get to closer to the marker and burp. Now we're in the last 2 stitches. In the last stitch, in the second last stitch, we're going to slip one purlwise like we normally do. We're going to bring the yarn around our needles, ready to burp. And that yarn that I left floating in the main color to the front of our work, what we're going to do is, remember we had to really create a yarn over for it. So what we're doing is we're going to pick up that yarn, and there's the stitch that we have to burp with its yarn over. And then we're just going to purl them as we would normally, but we're just holding the yarn in our hand so that's just floating there. And then we burp it, and then we're finished. And again, leave the yarn that you're finished with to the front of the yarn, or your gold, leave it to the front. And then we are going to continue, and we're going to have a knit round. So we're going to slip our marker first, and then we're going to bring our main color, because we're back on our knit round. So our knit round is going to be our main color. Bring it to the back here, because the first stitch is going to be a knit, or a brioche knit. And that brioche knit consists of the yarn that we just joined in, that we left to the front floating, and it's just like the last stitch of the purl round. We're going to knit this. So we're just going to hold the yarn over and the stitch, and then just knit it. And then with a knit round, which will bring the yarn to the front before we slip over and knit our brioche knit. Again, yarn to the front, slip, over and bark. Yarn to the front, slip purlwise, yarn over and brioche knit. Yarn to the front, slip purlwise, our yarn over and knit. And so we're going to continue that, and that is how we brioche knit in the round in 2 color. Now I'll work all the way around again, and I'll show you how to just deal with the yarns floating to the front. It just means we don't have any twists and turns in the back, and we're not carrying up yarns on the way, and it makes everything nice and neat. So again, yarn to the front, slip one purlwise, and knit, or brioche knit. Yarn to the front, slip one purlwise, and brioche knit. So if you continue that, I'll meet you very near the end, where just a few stitches before the end of row marker, and I'll show you how you do the floats again, and then you should be all set. So so we're almost at the end of our second knit brioche round, and I'm just going to work up until we get to our marker, and I'll show you the floats again. So because it's a knit round, our last stitch is going to be a slip one yarn over. So bring the yarn to the front and slip that last contrast color. Again, leave your yarn floating to the front when you're finished with it. These are our tails. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slip our end of row marker, and now we're about to start our contrast color and our burp round. So we pick that burp round up, and what we had was our first round was going to be a slip one yarn over. So we basically slip, because our yarn is already to the front, we don't even have to think about it. So we're slipping one purlwise, we're going to wrap the yarn around the needle, and then we're going to burp, and off we go. So it actually gets easier when you get a bit of length on your fabric to see how these floats work. Slip one yarn over and burp, and then slip over and burp. And we can start to see our pattern coming out here lovely. There's a really dense, thick rib So I'm going to continue on, and I'll do a few more rows around, and then you can see what it looks like after a few more rounds of burping the contrast and knitting or barking the main colour. Okay, so I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Hi, so here we've done a few rounds of our brioche knitting in our main colour navy and brioche burping in our contrast colour gold. So you can see how we have this dense fabric on both sides. It's fantastic. And here is our kind of floating yarn that's our main colour hanging to the front here. So you can see it gets a lot easier when you've got a little bit of fabric knit up. So I'll just work to the end of this burp round. So we're going to slip it purlwise, bring it around the needle and brioche purl, slip around and burp, slip around and over and burp, and slip over and burp. We're getting up to the end here now. So this one is going to be a slip one. We're going to do our yarn over as we normally do it. And the last stitch is going to be a brioche purl. So here's our working main colour yarn just hanging here to the front. So we're going to lift that up, and then we're just going to purl the two together and then leave it back down again. And so we've come to the end of that. So we're finished with our contrast colour gold. We're going to slip our end of row marker, and then we're going to bring our main colour yarn to the back because we're on a knit brioche round, and it's always going to be a brioche knit our first stitch here. And then off we go, and then we leave that again. Yarn to the front for brioche knitting, and then slip over and knit, brioche knit. Yarn to the front, slip purlwise, yarn over and brioche knit. And that's it, and you work your way all around. Use this beautiful brioche knitting in the round, which is one of my favourite. I think it's actually easier than brioche knitting on the flat in two colours. So if you really want a more detailed brioche knit, I have a tutorial on that one specifically just for knitting, and it's knitting on both sides. So go check that out in my JST Knitwear Designs channel on YouTube and have some fun. It's actually a great fun stitch to knit. Thank you for watching.